Hello and happy Parents of Preemies Day to everyone out there. Today, we are going to be talking with Adam Wood, who is a preemie dad and a preemie author. And let me just bring him on now. So, hello, Adam.
Hello, thanks for having me on today.
Thank you for being on. It's such a great treat to finally meet you in person. I've, stalked your Instagram feed and seen your books and all that. So this is really delightful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time. Let's just dive right into it. I'd like to hear about, or actually everyone listening would like to hear about your family's preemie journey and how everything sort of came to be.
Yeah, our preemie adventure has definitely been quite the experience. So, our adventure started just over 5.5 years ago. My wife and I actually went through several iterations of IVF. So, for a lot of families out there, IVF is kind of a common journey that is kind of linked with prematurity and NICU experiences a lot of times.
Mhm.
We went through numerous iterations of IVF and loss before we kind of got to the point where we were just kind of deciding maybe this is the final steps, this is the final try. And my wife suffers from a thing called polycystic kidney disease. So it's a genetic disease. Her mom had it, family members have it, and it basically breaks down the kidneys. It has all kinds of challenges and issues, and eventually the individual will need a kidney transplant in their lifetime. And having that linked with preeclampsia and all of those complications that are kind of intertwined, we were very heavily monitored throughout the process. Our
Mhm.
son kind of tracked behind for a good portion of the experience. And a lot of times we were told that, we may not be able to continue forward.
Mhm.
At about 21 weeks, 22 weeks, my wife was admitted to the ICU here in Connecticut for monitoring with high blood pressure. They monitor her and the baby, and we spent a week together in the ICU.
Mhm.
And then we continued to monitor. As we got closer to our about 25-week mark, we went in for a follow up, and the doctor had said to us that he was still tracking behind even for a 25-weeker, and that there's a big potential that we would have to make some decisions, whether that would be to terminate the pregnancy or just realize that he may not continue to grow and develop and have a quality of life.
Mhm.
That obviously, triggered a lot of things for my wife, who had gone through a lot. We had gone through so much to have him and had wanted to be parents so much. And we were admitted to the hospital, and we stayed for another 5 or 6 days before our son was born at 25 weeks.
Mhm.
He was born at 1 pound, 4 ounces, was about 10 and a half inches long. And it was an unbelievable experience for the both of us. It was very difficult for me to be able to.
You went on mute. That's
Sorry. It was
okay.
very difficult for my wife and my son to see them there. And as a dad, and I think a lot of dads out there can identify that you kind of feel pretty hopeless. And one of your jobs as a dad and as a father and a husband and is to protect your baby, protect your children, protect your wife, your spouse, and you're kind of unable to do a lot of that. You're kind of just a bystander. Um, I was able to see our son first. And I think I've talked about this before. And I think it's important to talk about is that a lot of men become the first ones to see their baby. And that's really not as common when we typically have, normal pregnancies. It's they're both there or mom's there and they
Mhm.
get to have that embrace. They get to have that connection. And in this case, I was getting this chance to see him and I felt really guilty about it. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go see our son because I felt
Mhm.
that I didn't want to take away that from my wife and from her experience and everything she went through.
Mhm.
And I didn't know what was going to happen. I had no clue that a child born 15 weeks early had any capacity to live.
Mhm.
My knowledge of prematurity was very limited. It was basically a light baby that needed to gain weight. That's, I think, what a lot of people think of.
Yeah.
And I saw him, and there was just a team of doctors around him, hand pumping his every single breath and just I was so amazed, so overwhelmed. It was just a beautiful miracle to see, but at the same time, very scared.
Mhm.
Um, and we were able to get him to the NICU. The nurses were wonderful. The staff was wonderful with educating us and letting my wife, know about what was going on and letting us know what was going on. And after a few days, we were finally able to kind of touch him and connect with him.
Mhm.
And we were able to have a real connection at that point. And I think, the first time you hold them, you have that beautiful connection and you feel like a parent, because I think for a lot of point, you're just standing by, hoping and praying, listening to the doctors, and then you finally able to connect. And it's hard because you got all those wires and it's hard to connect with the monitors and the beeping. But you do your best. And I think it's such an important piece of the care for the baby, but also for you as a parent, the mental health to be able to feel like a parent.
Yeah.
And for us, it was our first and only. So
Mm.
we had nothing to really compare it to. And we cherished every moment of that. We had a lot of ups and downs, and certainly we can talk about that. But we spent 4.5 months in the NICU before coming home on a G tube. We had oxygen. We had 2 cranial helmets when we were home. Lots of different medications. Of
Mhm.
course, the dreaded monitors that we all have at our home that kind of bring the NICU home for us. And we spent a great deal of time pretty much secluded that first year.
Mhm.
A lot of our family, for the most part, wasn't even aware our son was even born until we got closer to him being home, and we kind of knew he was going to make it because there were so many times. And so we kind of made a conscious decision to keep a few in the know and then avoid, social media like the plague and just kind of stay away. And then when he turned a year old, I'd say a good majority of my family finally got to see a glimpse of him in person.
Mhm.
And then COVID hit. So then, like all of us, we were kind of secluded before it was cool. And the last couple of years, we've certainly had our ups and downs.
Mhm.
We've had challenges with RSV. At 18 months, he went back to the hospital for 2 weeks
Mhm.
during Thanksgiving
Mhm.
with RSV, and that was after we had previously got the Synagis shot,
Mhm.
and then unfortunately got rejected the next year. And while
Jeez.
we fought it,
Mhm.
ironically, just like the Alanis Morissette song, isn't that ironic? He gets it,
Oh.
the day before it gets approved. Um, and that was certainly its own challenge, being in the PICU
Mhm.
and going from the NICU to PICU. And I think it was in some ways a little bit more traumatic because he was a little bit more aware of the situation. He was reaching out for us. It wasn't just him looking up. So to see with all those wires and him wanting to be there and have you be there was, I think, a lot harder than a lot of people realize.
Yeah.
And then, we finally came home, and he has been improving ever so much ever since. And he's about to turn 5, as we discussed, in a few weeks.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't know that this kid was a preemie. Like, he has overcome everything any doctor or person checkup has ever told us. And he really is a miracle. I
Mhm.
cannot say anything else than the kid is a miracle, because he's just overcome so much. And it's been great to see so many other people as well share their stories and talk about that, because I think it is important to share stories and celebrate parents and the families, because a lot of us just kind of get exposed to it,
Mhm.
and none of us know, what the outcome could be. And I think when you see the stories and you talk to other parents and they say, I had a 23 week, or I had a 24 week, or I had twins or triplets, like, it gives you a little more hope, because when you're in there, you find not too much of it, because you're kind of you're very alone.
Yeah.
You're with your thoughts, you're with your spouse. There's not a lot of connection there.
Mhm.
So it becomes certainly a challenge.
Yeah, I agree. It is sort of a very isolating, even if there are people around in the NICU, because you feel like you're in the trenches of your own path, your journey, because that's what we all call it, the NICU journey. And you
Yep.
don't realize there's so many paths right next to you, but we don't recognize it. So these are important. And thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, that is amazing. And I'm so glad he's doing so well.
Thank you.
Um, and now to segue into that, you became a Preemie author with wonderful, I don't want to say hilariously because people go, oh my God, the NICU, but like NICU parents get it. Like
Yeah.
they're funny, they're cute, they're heartwarming. I didn't switch the slide, but here we go. These wonderful books you've created. Tell me how you got into, like, what made you decide I'm going to start writing books?
Well, I'll tell you right now, the first and foremost thing is, if you would have told me I would be writing children's books now at this point, a guy who had been in the military, had served 20 years in the Army and had been all over,
Hmm.
and now was writing children's books for preemies, no one would have won that bet. But I think sometimes, like, God puts things in our path and unexpected reasons, and it gives us a path to help other people. But I think one of the things I saw when I was in the NICU, I read so much to my son. That was a way for me to connect. And I think a lot of dads and moms, especially, I read anything that was left there, pamphlets, the doctor's notes, whatever it was. I would bring history books and read to him about, the War of 1812 or whatever it may be,
Uh-huh.
and just listen and watch his stats. And, you go on Google, you're looking for preemie stuff, and there's not a lot out there at that point. There's some things, there's books for doctors and nurses. There's some books that highlight on the size factor, but not so much preemies.
Mhm.
And it got to a point where, as we got home and COVID kind of hit, I said, you know what? I kind of maybe want to do something, a way to give back. I actually created Preemie Adventures, the social media through Instagram and Facebook, was more of an outlet for me to be stuck alone and kind of share my funny thoughts and my view of the world,
Mhm.
having experienced that from a parent, a dad,
Mhm.
the ins and outs, and maybe help cheer other people up. And then, people liked it. And I kind of thought, why don't I take this idea and bring humor and education and hope to a family? So I researched, I went through all kinds of processes to figure out how to publish a book. I had never done that. And I found a fantastic illustrator. We worked together. The illustrator had no clue about preemies, but he just did a wonderful job in
Mhm.
bringing everything to life. The cover of the book, as you can see, Our Preemie Adventure, that little blue guy is the same guy that's right here. And that's the
The
exact
octopus.
same octopus that my son held. That's Oscar. And he's in all the books, but he's an important part of that. And we started to add all the little details. And we thought, I want it to be a book about preemies that's just as much for parents as it is for babies. Like, I
Mhm.
want people to be able to read to somebody and say, I'm connecting with my child, but man, this person that lived through it, went through it, I understand them. They understand me. They have something to look forward to. They know the milestones, and they look back at it and say, let's think about the good days. Let's celebrate the wins, the positives, and maybe not look at the NICU in such a scary way, because you always have that live with you.
Mhm.
And it was a wonderful experience to do. As a result, Dr. Premfort, who's the,
Mhm.
the NICU doc here on Instagram, and he's a neonatologist at Johns Hopkins.
Mhm.
He reached out to me about a year and a half ago with the idea, after reading the book, of wanting to take what he loves, which is educating people and families, and collaborate and make more books.
Mhm.
So we wrote Our Respiratory Venture, a NICU story.
Mhm.
And that was really to, one, continue to use humor,
Mhm.
continue to showcase to parents that you're going to have highs and lows.
Mhm.
You're going to see things, and to share that perspective of what we see, the
Mhm.
eyes of the NICU through us. And through that experience, it was fun because he got to really learn how parents think. And he was very surprised by how we perceive everything and what we view it as. So I think it helps the doctors a lot, nurses, and we were able to collaborate and really make it simple for parents to understand why we use certain things, whether it's the oscillator, what does it do? You
Mhm.
see this big thing. Or why do we use caffeine? What does it help do? It's a very simple way that all parents and people can understand the NICU experience. And it primarily focuses on respiratory, but there's other things we add into there. And it just continues to show the journey of people all over. And that book was really a lot of different families we added in, a lot of different journeys that we saw in
Mhm.
families. And then we continued to add to that. And we put a NICU Christmas adventure, which I just always wanted to do a book about the holidays, and I love Christmas. So we put that together and showcased, you know, a viewpoint now more from siblings,
Mhm.
siblings that want to have their little brothers or sisters come home. We've got twins, we've got all these people involved, and how do we bring them home? And they're reaching out to Santa Claus, and Santa Claus is now experiencing the NICU, and it's bringing it to life, and it's combining these worlds. And a lot of families, they go through a lot of the holidays in the NICU,
Yes.
or the PICU. So for them, it's a great way to be able to feel seen, have a book that's very real and unique for them.
Mhm.
And again, they can look back with their kids 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now or more, and
Yeah.
say, this is what you went through, but it's not
Mhm.
scary. And
Yeah.
it's a way that's digestible, and it's a way that the parent can look back and read it and just kind of be more fond of the experiences they had, and celebrate the relationships they had and just the wins that they found, and really focusing more on the hope and the positive of it all.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, they're great books, honestly,
Thank
and
you.
I think they're also lovely just to maybe hand to other family members, like, "Here," like, it's funny, but this is how it kinda goes. Because some people, I mean, if you're not in it, if you're not in the NICU, you don't fully understand it, how it's working, and it's not like, "Oh, they're born, they're okay, they're doing okay." Well, yes, they are. No, they're not. Yes, they are. No, they're, I mean, like, it's that.
Exactly.
So, they're just such great books. Thank you so much for I mean, thank you for creating them. I mean, they're just so, I
Oh,
love them so
appreciate it.
much. So, like,
Thank you. I appreciate it.
yeah, no, they're great books. I will have to admit, I have not met, Christmas Adventure, so that's next on my list. I have
That
the
just came out. We've got yeah, we've got a couple more I'm working on. So we'll have a our Preemie Adventure 2. I'm right now working on, that'll be for what happens when we come home.
Oh,
So
that's
parents can
great.
understand. And then we're working on actually a kind of a Halloween themed one. So we're gonna be doing how we've got a number of ones we're doing.
Uh-huh.
Eventually Dr. Fort and I want to create an entire series that will help not just the NICU, PICU, and preemies, but it'll talk about the adventures that kids with different ailments, heart issues, and things. The idea is to create a whole series that families will be able to identify with and have a book that's very unique to them and shares
Mhm,
their unique experience and maybe helps other family members and friends understand kind of what they're going through.
mhm.
So I think it's good for other people to kind of pick up and kind of get a viewpoint of what the parents going to be going through.
Oh, wow, that's truly wonderful. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Nice work, Adam.
Thank you.
And then we also, you touched upon the importance of reading to your preemie in the NICU, and, which is something I know sometimes parents have a hard time starting on. I know I personally did, 'cause but reading does sort of help. Why don't you talk about that, how that sort of came to be? Like, did you just decide, "I'm just gonna start reading anything and everything," or was it a nurse pushed it, or, like, how'd that work?
I think it was some of the nurses pushed it, the doctors pushed it. I think they, in the beginning, you have to watch with their sensory because you can't overwhelm them, loud noises, and things. But I think when you start to read and you start to touch them and you connect with them and you start to see their stats, like families, what we do is we stat watch. They tell us not to,
Mhm,
but you see it hits 92, 93, 94, and it stays because you're doing something.
mhm,
You'll do it till the cows come home, whether it's holding your hand way up in the air, or reading. You'll talk
mhm,
to your voices hoarse because your baby is soothed by it. And I think it is so important for them and for you, because you start to feel like a parent, because a lot of parents, we look back and we picture ourselves at home and reading to our babies and our kids. And that's such a beautiful experience that we all have in our head. And sometimes the NICU can rob you of those experiences. It feels very hard. And that's a way for you to say, I can impact in some way by reading. And I think it doesn't matter what it is. It really doesn't have to be. I mean, I've read Dr. Seuss, and again, like I said, I've read just the pages of their stats because I ran out of stuff to say,
huh,
or I would sing to him a little bit, or my wife would sing to him a little melody. It's just a way for them to know that you're there.
mhm,
And I think there's so many wonderful books out there. They don't have to be this. And I think the good thing about it is that the last few years, especially, there have been so many wonderful parents, especially, that have started to create more books, more
mhm.
things to help other people pay it forward. And I've
That's
met many other authors who have really shared their insight and their thoughts, whether it be as from a mom's perspective, from a sibling, um, a way to educate somebody,
mhm,
poetry. There's been so many amazing things that have come out of there. And I think it's wonderful to see that. And hopefully we'll see more stories and more people will be inspired to write and develop. And I think it's a way to also help yourself and with your mental health to feel like I'm making a difference. And I think when you kind of see that,
yeah,
it recharges you a little bit more. You don't feel as defeated when you go walk in there and you feel like no matter what you do, sometimes it doesn't impact anything.
mm,
That's very real. Reading and being part of the care
mm,
and touching them and holding them, that's
mhm,
stuff that you can do. And that's something I always encourage and I think is important whenever you have the opportunity to do all of those at once, or at least
mm.
one of those each time you're there.
Yeah, no, that's great, yeah. Especially because I think this month is Kangaroo Cares Awareness.
There, it's well. There, yeah, we have NICU. We have NICU. We have Nurses Month week, We have kangaroo awareness. There's so many different ones that
There,
populate
there,
up.
there are quite a few. It was maternal mental health
Hmm.
as well. Like, I apologize if I know it's coming up. It's like May 14th. And I know the person's going to kill me because I have all the stuff to post for it, but it is coming up. And so that all kind of ties in. But also with that is, talking about trying to help your preemie, but what about, we talk a lot about baby and mom, but what about dad self-care while your preemie is in the NICU or your wife is, recovering? Like what does that look like, or your perspective on it?
I think dads are very bad at self care. I think that's just something we genetically are just really bad at.
Mhm.
We tend to compartmentalize, we tend to push things down, and then at some point try to deal with it. And for some of us, we never deal with it. And
Mhm.
that's really not a healthy way to do anything.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes it also leads to communication issues.
Mhm.
So I've had this with my own wife, and I talk with other spouses where they've said with their husbands that they feel like they're not involved, they're not invested, they don't show emotion, and really it's their way of coping with the situation and not adding more to mom and
Mhm.
stressing her out. And there were a lot of times where I had to like have a poker face because I had to explain what was going on. For me, I kind of played the point person for a lot of the care so my wife could be focused on the baby. And
Yeah.
that takes a lot on you, like mentally. And you're also trying to see how to communicate with your spouse because it's a very unique situation.
Yeah.
And the walls of of those NICUs, I've heard all kinds of conversations amongst each other. So I think it's important for men to find an outlet, find something to be honest with your partner. I mean,
Mhm.
don't give them the fire hose and say, "This is the worst day ever. I hate everything in the world. I'm so stressed out." But give them a little insight into what you're feeling, or just say, "Listen, I know I've been pretty strong and helping through everything, and hopefully that's helping. But today is a really hard day for me. Can you be the main person today and just let me do what I need to do while we're there or
Mhm.
at home?" And I think that little bit just let your spouse know, like, hey, he's invested, he's going through a rough time. No problem. Let me take that on. And you
Mhm.
feel like a partner in a team. And I think families sometimes don't do that in the NICU. And then that continues when you get home.
Mhm.
You don't communicate. All you're doing is you're focusing on your baby, which is what you're supposed to do,
Mhm.
but at the same time, you need to have self care. So there could be other things you could do. For a lot of families, they can't go out to eat. They don't want to go out to eat. There's the guilt of I've got to be with my baby 24/7, 7 days a week. But the
Mhm.
likelihood for you to be able to do that and sustain that, especially if you've got long care, like we had, and you've talked about, and others, that you could be there 4, 5, 6 year. That's a long time. You can't do that and sustain that. So take some time for yourself, go out to eat, take some time to just walk around the hospital, get out for a bit. If working out is your thing, go for a walk, work out, set aside some time so that you can be mentally charged. And then when you get home, work on a schedule that you and your spouse can maintain that's realistic.
Mhm.
Let your spouse go out with, whatever they want to do for 3 hours on a Thursday night. If they want to go work out or go out with the girls for a drink or just to talk, whatever. And then vice versa. You go out for a couple hours, do whatever it needs to be. You're
Mhm.
not feeling guilty because your spouse is there to take care of them.
Mhm.
And then you can have the mental charge. But, one of the things we just see is there's just not a focus on dads in any capacity. Like there are organizations that are working on it,
Mhm.
but the mental health piece in the NICU, there's not a lot of hospitals that even have mental health for the parents, let alone the caretakers, meaning the hospital staff.
Yeah.
I've talked with doctors and nurses, and I asked them, what's your program like? Because you see loss, you see a lot of hard stuff, and they say, well, a lot of times we don't have on call people to talk to about that. And to me, you need to make sure that everybody that's dealing with that has that care. And maybe it's just funding and getting the right people, but there are organizations, there are people, there are networks and mentors and families that you could talk to. So if you can partner with a nonprofit, whether it's Grams or it's another program that might have assistance, and talk with another family member and just say, they've been through it. Maybe they just need to vent and talk to you, and that's just all you need is somebody that understands what you went through.
Definitely. Definitely. Shameless plug of Graham's Foundation. We do
I
have.
will shamelessly plug away. I have no problem with that. I mean, any organization that dedicates itself to helping preemie NICU families, like that's right next to my heart.
No, thank you. And also, we do have a preemie parent mentor program, and we also have dads who volunteer and want to connect with other dads to just help them, because it is the the mental health of preemie parents is still the puzzle piece they haven't figured out. And even on top of that is the dads, like the partner in the thing. You know, everyone focuses on baby, obviously, and then it's sort of maternal mental health. But no, there's a maternal mental health awareness, but there's no father, there's no paternal mental health. Like, that hasn't happened yet. And it's something, you know, they're going on family centered care, which is great, but that mental health piece still has not been tackled yet. And I'm sure some NICUs have gone there, but countrywide, probably not.
No, I
What
haven't
was
seen too much
something-
of it.
Yeah. And with that, when Brady came home, like, how did you and your wife then find balance? Like, how did you find balance when he came from the NICU? Because obviously that you're many people, as you and I both know, like, when you're in the NICU, this becomes your life and your routine. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, they're going home. And you're like, wait, what? And you can be elated or scared, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's all natural emotion. But then, like, the new normal happens, and then everything changes again. And it's like, how do you I mean, I was a wreck, I'll be honest. And I just, all of a sudden, when you're talking, I'm like, how did my husband deal with this? And the answer is, I don't really remember anymore. So, like,
No.
how did you find balance when it came from the NICU and the new normal started?
I think it takes time, but I think you kind of get into a groove and you become. I've often said with my wife and I, our marriage to a degree improved because of what we went through.
Mhm.
Even though we went through very early in our marriage, we weren't really 5, 6, 7 years in. We were really a few years in.
Mhm.
At that point, 2 years into marriage when we went through all that.
Uh-huh.
So I think we found that the fight or flight mode like improved our ability to communicate, to be
Mhm.
effective for our son, and just like taking care of this, taking care of that. We almost became telepathic to a degree.
Uh-huh.
We couldn't become telepathic in any other part, but when it came down to that kid, we
Yeah.
were a pit crew. But I
Uh-huh.
think it takes time to get to that point where you find the balance. And I think it depends when you come home. You come home during, like, we came October.
Mhm.
Well, that's cold and flu season. It's everything else. You're worried. Not everyone can work from home. So there's a lot of balancing pieces with that.
Mhm.
And then I think you just get to a point where you kind of figure it out, but you really have to, again, find the way at home that you can get some time for you. So for me, I found outlets that helped me and allowed me to just be focused on creating something or,
Mhm.
whatever. So before I was doing books, I was looking up how to make props for Halloween in my garage. And I
Uh-huh.
would take a couple hours and build something because it took my mind off of that and focused it in one area for something that I felt was like positive and
Yeah.
good. Maybe it's working out, maybe it's going for a walk and run, maybe it's what gaming for a couple hours mindlessly. And I
Yeah.
think the whole part is don't judge your spouse and whatever that is to get them good. If
Mhm.
your husband wants to game for 3 hours and play Call of Duty, great. As long as he comes back and he's focused and there and present, great.
Yeah.
If your wife wants to go and she wants to nap for 3 hours, or she wants to knit, or she wants to go for a run, or whatever, let her do what she needs to do as much as she needs to do it. And I think you get to that point over time, but it's continued communication too. Like you have to keep that open dialogue with each other and be very honest. And I think that's a hard thing, to be brutally honest with
Yeah.
each other. There were times where we would accidentally say things out loud that we were thinking and thinking, oh God, did I say that?
Yeah.
And the person she would sit there and say, I was literally just thinking that same thing and felt like a bad parent.
Mhm.
Like, the guilt of, what if this is the best it ever is? You have those guilts. What if they don't make it? What if we're back in the hospital? You
Mhm.
you try not to be driving on the negativity, like, but your mind wanders so much, and that's okay. Like, you're gonna do that. You're gonna have times where you're not gonna have the most positive outlook on things, but
Yeah.
get that off your chest. Let your spouse say, I agree, I feel the same way, but let's move on together. And I think you're able to do what you need to do. But the resilience of preemie and NICU families and parents is amazing on what
Mhm.
they're able to do, and then what they're able to do afterwards in creating organizations, nonprofits. Like, I'm always amazed to talk to people, especially those that have had difficult journeys or loss and yet still create something that helps and impacts people and their legacy lives on. And
Mhm,
I just, it's always wonderful to talk to people that can do that, because I don't think everyone can be a preemie and NICU family.
mhm,
It takes a very special mindset and skill set, but God bless them for all they do. And
mhm.
hopefully that helps somebody, and just realizing that you're not alone, and it's gonna take time.
Okay, cool. Well, that's wonderful. Also, one thing I remember someone told me was to recognize the exhaustion. Because I think
Oh yeah.
sometimes, like, both of the parents just go, oh, like, they just power through, or they don't wanna say how tired they are because then it becomes like a battle of who's more tired, but, like, recognizing just how tired you are, and the other one go, "Yeah, me too," and just move on.
Yep.
Took a while for my husband and I to do. We're like,
It's okay.
yeah,
It's okay.
it's
You
so
know,
yeah, it's a lot.
no one gives us an instruction manual. There's no how-to book on preemies when it happens.
Yeah,
And you just, everyone kind of deals with it in their own capacity. I think the important part is providing um, an opportunity for people to see other stories, talk to other people, a
mhm,
network,
yeah,
resources, so that
yeah,
they can realize, okay, I'm not the only one,
mhm,
and that's normal, and power through.
yeah, yeah, no, totally, yeah. What to expect while expecting did not work for me.
No, no, they didn't have that. They didn't have that chapter. I'm telling you, I'm
Yeah,
gonna.
there was none.
Yeah,
There
I'm like,
was
I didn't even get to the part where we're in trimester 3. We're still
yeah,
supposed to be in a whole trimester, and you've moved ahead. So
yeah,
here
yeah,
we are.
yeah, just I jumped right to the end there. But this has been great. Thank you so much, Adam, for taking time to share your story, your books, just your perspective on it. Greatly appreciate it. I know we're planning on doing another one with you. I don't know. I don't think it's been scheduled yet, but we'll figure it out.
Yep.
For anyone out there, we did already post where to find Adam's great books. So please take a look, check them out, buy a few. And I guess I don't think if anyone has any questions, you're welcome to post. If not, you can always reach out through Graham's Foundation. I can connect you with Adam, or pose the question to him and get back to you. It's not a problem, either on Facebook or Instagram, or even LinkedIn, or even TikTok. Take your pick, people. So thank you so much again, Adam, for coming on, and I guess happy Parents of Preemies Day. And also another important thing, because I didn't realize you were in the military. Thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you very much. And doesn't look like we have any questions, so I guess we can wrap it up. And just have a great day.
Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for having me on, Nicole. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.